Good morning, girls. Am I audible?
Good morning, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
All right. So today is our MIS class, right? So we started with the 5th unit.
Yes, ma'am.
So we started with DFD, right? Data flow diagram. All right. So these are the components of a data flow diagram. Usually, these are the most used components, and every part of data flow diagram is composed of one of these four parts. Okay. So firstly, the square or a rectangle represents an external entity. External entity means either a place or a source where input is required, okay, or input is taken from, and a place where output is provided. Either we'll see the examples and you will understand better. So an arrow represents the flow of data from one part to another, or from one component to another. Then this kind of a box represents a data store. This kind of a box is usually open from one end. Okay, so this is a data store where all the data is kept. Then a rounded box or a rounded rectangle or a square represents a process. Okay, and within each of these we write whatever process or entity it represents. Okay, so now firstly we'll understand each of these one by one. Okay, so firstly we come to the process. Now the process, it is also known as a bubble. So this rounded rectangle which you see here with produce grade report written inside it, this is what represents a bubble or a process. Okay, it represents a function or transmission. It shows the part of the system that transforms inputs to the outputs. It is the work or action performed on the data inside the system. So whatever goes on, whatever processing goes on, or whatever action takes place on the input to convert it into output is done within the process. Okay, so like here grade details are entered, then a report is prepared here. So the preparation of the report takes place here, and then the final report is generated as an output. Then the labels should be verb phrases. Now verb phrases means it should represent some action that is going on. Okay, like here we are saying that it produces grade report. Okay, so this is a verb phrase. Then receives data input data and produces output. Okay, so always there would be an entry of data into the process and there would be an output produced. Then there are two rules that have to be followed. First, it can have more than one ongoing data flow or more than one incoming data. Okay, so input can be more than one. It can connect any other symbol including other process symbols. Okay, so the output from this can be sent to another process, and there can be multiple processes in a line. Okay, so these are the two rules that have to be followed while constructing a process. Then next we come to data flow. It is a path for data to move from one part of the information system to another. Okay, so these arrows represent data flow. So here Data is firstly flowing from the process to the data store and then back from the data store to the process. Okay. Arrow depicting movement of data can represent flows between process and data store by two separate arrows. Okay. Next we come to data store. What is a data store? So I told you this kind of a box with one side cut off and the other side is open. This kind of a box represents a data store. It is used in a data flow diagram to represent data that the system stores. Labels should be noun phrases. Now here we do not have to represent any kind of process that is going on. Okay, so these have to be noun phrases. They just have to signify what the data inside it represents, and it must have at least one incoming and one outgoing data flow. Okay, so a data store obviously has to have some kind of input that brings data to it and an output that takes processed data to some other component. And last we come to the source or the external entity. So here you can see the rectangle or a square represents the external entity. Here we have taken the example of a customer trying to order something. Okay. External entity, that is origin or destination of data outside the system. Okay, so it can either be origin of data or it can also be a destination of data. Destination means you can either ask, like here the customer is firstly inquiring about the order or trying to place the order. Once the processing takes place, the final invoice is generated and sent back to the customer. Okay, so here in this case, this external entity is both the origin of data and the destination of data. It is the singular form of a department outside the organization, other information systems or person. Okay, so it can represent a department which is outside the organization, or other information systems, or a person, anything. Okay, then here also the labels should be noun phrases, like a customer represents a person. Then source is the entity that supplies data to the system. Now here this has to be a source of data that is inputted into a process or a data store. Okay, it must be connected to a process by a data flow. Okay, so here like you can see the arrows. Then next we come to the types of DFD. There are two basic divisions in types of DFD. First is logical DFD and the second one is physical DFD. Okay, I hope everybody is following. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Please
Yes,
keep on
ma'am.
responding, okay, so that I know that everybody is hearing me. Okay. Logical DFD. It focuses on the business and how the business operates. It describes So it describes the business event that takes place and the data required and produced by each event. Okay, so a logical DFD usually describes an event that is taking place in a business or any kind of data that is produced or needed by an event. The logical data flow diagram mainly focuses on system processes. So whatever process goes on in a business, in a system, in an information system is represented through a logical DFD. it illustrates how data flows in the system. Logical DFD is used in various organizations for smooth running of system. Like in a banking software system, it is used to describe how data is moved from one entity to another. Okay. Then physical DFD, physical data flow diagram, shows how the data flows in actually implemented in the system. Physical DFD is more specific and close to the implementation. So here we try to judge through a system through the representation of a pictorial aspects or entities or components of a system, and then we see from where the data will originate and how the movement of data will take place. Here also we try to represent the flow of data, but here we try to do it physically before the implementation of the data, okay, or before the implementation of the system or information system, okay. Next we come to levels of DFD. Now there are basically 3 levels of DFD that we'll be studying, okay. Data flow diagrams are also categorized by levels, starting with the most basic level 0. DFDs get increasingly complex as the level increases. As you build your own data flow diagram, you will need to decide which level your diagram will be, okay. So there are 3 levels, as I said, and each level is more complicated than the previous one, okay. So there can be more levels, but these are the 3 basic levels that have to be there, okay. The more complex a system is, the higher the level of the DFD, okay. So first, level 0 DFD. So here you can see this is an example of a level 0 DFD, okay. The level 0 DFD, also known as the context level DFD, okay, it can also be known as the context level DFD, is the simplest DFD. The outermost level, level 0, is concerned with how the system interacts with the outside world, okay. So here, just like these examples that we saw, these are also examples of level 0 DFDs, okay. So here we only show how the system is interacting with the outside world. This level basically represents the input and output of the entire system. So like here, if you see the example, the entity where input is generating from is the passenger. They try to reserve a ticket, okay, and the reservation system in the railway send back ticket information. This railway, when the passenger places a request for reservation, they send the information to the admin, okay, and the admin actually checks whether the ticket is available or not and sends back the train information, and the ticket is then booked, okay. It can also be cancelled. Here it is also trying to see send a cancellation request to the reservation process, and this cancellation can also be done through the admin, okay. So this is the railway reservation system. Now this system is interacting with the passenger and with the admin, okay. So this is a level 0 DFD. We are not showing what is happening inside the railway reservation system. We are just showing how the reservation system is interacting with the outside entities. Clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Next we see how we can create a level 0 DFD, okay. So firstly, identify your main system. Like here it was the railway reservation system. Identify the external people who interact with the system. So here external people are the passenger and the admin. And finally, decide what data these entities will enter into the system, okay. So these are the 3 steps which, by following which, you can construct a level 0 DFT. Clear? Now, secondly, we come to a level 1 DFT. So level 1 DFT. The basic module of the system are represented in this phase, and the basic module of the system are represented in this phase, and how data moves through different modules is shown. The level 1 DFT provides a high level view of the system that identifies the major processes and data stored. So here what we are trying to do, we are trying to find out and identify what are the major processes that are going on and the data stores, along with the interactions that are going on with the external entities. Okay, then how can we create a level 1 DFT? Focus on the process and break it into 2 or more sub processes. Okay, so here we'll have to create sub processes as well. That is why this is the second level of DFT, that is level 1. Then identify what data flows between these processes and between the entities. So here you can see this is a level 1 DFT. Okay, so here various sub processes, the circles represent the processes. Okay, like we saw the rounded rectangle, so here the circles are representing the processes. Okay, this is the data store, reservation storage. Passenger is the external entity, and these are various processes that go on. Okay, so reservation process, inquiry process, ticket generation process, and reporting to admin. Okay, here also there are 2 more data storage. This is the down storage and the up storage. Okay, so this is a level 1 DFT. What are we doing? We are showing the data flow from and to the external entities, plus we have divided the system into various sub processes. Okay, then identify what permanent data files are used in the system, and note that no new entities can be introduced. Okay, then finally we come to a level 2 DFT and other levels. So this can be level 2, then level 3, depending on how complex your DFT is. So you can see visually also the difference between the 3 levels of DFT. You will see, like here this was the simplest form. Okay, level 0. Then this became a little more complex, the level 1, and this is the most complex, level 2. Obviously it can go further in complexity by increasing the number of sub processes and internal processes that are going on. So level 2 DFT, each process from level 1 is explored even more into sub processes. The decomposition continues for each level. The number of levels possible depend on the complexity of the system. Okay, so here you can see the number of processes are further divided into query process, then inquiry process, then railway department has its own processing that is going on. Then the cancellation process, the ticket generation process, the confirmation process, then searching process that goes on when we try to search for a train or a destination. Okay, so all these are further complex processes that go on inside a process, or the sub processes that go on inside a complex process. Okay, understood everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next there is a concept known as leveling of DFT. Okay, so a context diagram is explained into a number of interrelated processes. Each process may be further explained into set of interconnected subprocesses. This procedure of expanding and DFD is known as leveling. So just like we did here, all these three processes are also leveling of DFD. Okay. Next we come to the advantages of a DFD. First, it aids in describing the boundaries of the system. So boundaries of the system means what would be the reach of the system, or where it will stop or where it will begin, the limitations and the scope of the system. Then it is beneficial for communicating existing system knowledge to the users. So whatever knowledge is going on, or whatever processes are going on into the system, it helps in the user in understanding or communicating with the system. Then a straightforward graphical technique which is easy to recognize. So just looking at the DFD, you can recognize what processes are going on and from where the data is going to which place or which store or which process. Okay, the DFDs can provide a detailed representation of system components. Then it is used as a part of the system documentation file. So every complex system has a DFD because it is easier to visually see and recognize the errors, if any, or if there are any processes that we are missing whenever a MIS is created. Then DFDs are easier to understand by technical and non-technical audience. Okay, so we are obviously from the non-technical background, but we can also clearly understand what this DFD represents, right? Then yes. And finally, it supports the logic behind the data flow within the system. Okay, so obviously the main aim of the DFD is to, as the name suggests, the data flow diagram. We are trying to find out the flow of data within a system. Okay, so this brings us to the end of the first topic, which is the DFD. Okay, the second topic is the data dictionary. Okay, a data dictionary is a structured repository of data about data. Okay, so data dictionary is a instruction manual. I'll just give you an overview and then we'll continue tomorrow. Okay, so data dictionary is actually a sort of user manual kind of a thing for the data that is stored in the system. Okay, so it is just like a dictionary. To read a paragraph or a book, you may need a dictionary. Okay, if you are reading a book maybe in another language, right? So if you have the dictionary along with you, you can find out the meanings and the various components of each of the components of the various elements of the data. Maybe we can find out some specific records that we are looking for within the data. Okay, so a data dictionary is a description of the entire data. Okay, in other words, it is a set of precise and accurate definitions of all DFDs, data elements and data structures. There are three main items present in a data dictionary. Okay, so what are the three items? Data item, data structures, and data flow and data stores. So I'll explain these in detail tomorrow. Okay, please go through whatever we have studied today, the entire DFD topic, and write in your own words whatever we have discussed in class, whatever I've explained. Okay, try to explain in short these examples of DFD that we have shown here. Okay, and you can download the PPT. It's the same link that I linked in the very first class. It's the same PPT, but I keep on updating it according to the topics we are covering and studying. So if you download it today, you'll get all these topics that I have updated up till now. Okay, so we'll stop here.